Alrighty, here we go. Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Smudtalk number 26. This is a once in a lifetime, once in a generation sort of event in I would call TV history, even though it's technically a streaming service at this point. And I'm here today with Matt Kadish, and we are going to be talking about episode 9 of season 2 of Picard. If you guys don't know that, don't worry. We'll try and fill you in on some details, even if you don't know Star Trek or haven't watched Picard. And Matt, you just talked about this on your Salty Nerd podcast, link in the description, if you want to see that. And I thought that was a rather fun talk, as chaotic as it was, but I wanted to get you to come on because you were moderating and you had a lot of points and you wanted to keep this discussion going, and I felt you had a lot more to say. And I'm glad that you're here.
Well, thanks for having me on. And every Saturday we get a group of us together to basically bitch about Star Trek for 2 hours.
Right.
And starting with the previous episode 8, we did 7 and 8 together. And I had almost gone apoplectic. I almost had a brain aneurysm watching these episodes because the bad writing on display in the show is just so blatant and terrible and stupid that I feel like I get dumber having watched the episode. And so we do this live stream every Saturday talking about Star Trek for me to vent, basically. And it's almost like a Star Trek support group in a way where they're like, oh, it's okay. You've gone 60 days without Star Trek. You can go on.
That's what it feels like. I was watching, in series, and I had this weird pattern. Every even numbered episode was slightly more watchable than the odd ones. And then episode 8 hits, and I was like, whoa, this is garbage. This is so bad. And I had to take 3 days, in between editing the video that I'm doing the series on, just because it was so, I can't believe this. I need to take a break. I need to get a drink, go do some exercise, and come back. And this is what actually happened. I have to, my brain has to process this again. And I have to talk about it. It's amazing. And that's why when I saw episode 9, I thought, after episode 8, it can't get any worse. It did. And
it just keeps getting worse. I don't know if you saw season 1, but it kind of followed the same model where the first 2 episodes were okay and hope that it's going to be a good series. And then from episode 3 to the finale, it's just a steady downhill journey into stupidity and mediocrity and insulting one's intelligence.
Yeah,
it's really bad.
There's a lot of ways to write a story about an old fogey who's past his prime and dealing with whatever. And there's all these wonderful, wonderful, nice slice of lives you can do. And it's all psychological. It's all sort of homey and nice and kind. And there could be a little bit of conflict, but nothing like galaxy-changing events. And that's what they just went for it. And I'm like, this is not. I don't think anyone wanted this sort of format for a Picard story. So I was really hesitant with season 1. I just stopped watching after episode 3. I thought, okay, it's not going the way I thought it would. It's not my thing. Maybe it's good for other people, but this is not for me. So I just stopped my analysis and checked out. I saw some clips online, and I was like, ooh, that is...
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it's just been a steady exercise in assassinating the character of Jean-Luc Picard. And, it's almost painful. Because Jean-Luc was my captain growing up. I wasn't an original series guy. I was a next-gen guy. And he was always kind of my favorite captain, right? Mm-hmm. And seeing him in this series, starting with season 1 and continuing into this season, it's making me not like the character. It's making me angry the more I think about it, because what they're doing is they're destroying this beloved character through incompetence. I guess is the only word I can think of when it comes to the showrunner and the writers for the show.
Which is strange.
It's aggressively incompetent.
Which is strange because he's in the writer's room and he's made he put his foot down saying what he does and does not want to do. And from the interviews that I read, he actually said, Captain Picard is me. We cannot disseminate the two. And I'm like, wow, really? You are Captain Picard? All right. I mean, that's a weird thing to say. I've never heard you know, any of the old.
Well, I think one of the issues is that they've given Patrick Stewart too much creative control. He's a great actor, but he's not a good storyteller.
Is that writer. It? I have no idea what's going on. I've never seen writing like this. Of this.
Well, he didn't want to come back for anything, right? But Alex Kurtzman, the current overlord, the Kevin Feige of the Star Trek universe, he basically wheeled and dealed with Patrick Stewart and agreed to give him a certain amount of creative control. So Stewart made a bunch of demands, like he doesn't want to wear a Starfleet uniform, like stuff like that. And they have to basically kowtow to those demands. And, with Stewart having like such a say, the creative process of this show, I think it's actually hurt it, because I don't think he's a very good, storyteller, writer, what have you. Like, great actor, love the guy in terms of like his ability to, act. But storytelling wise, writing wise, he's a disaster, and they should have never given him that much control.
Yeah, I don't know how that worked, but we can see the tropes and patterns of storytelling. I wrote a few of them down from clips I've seen from season 1 and some from season 2, of course, because I watched season 2 so far. And this is a list of things, of tropes. Now, tropes in general are neutral, but there are definitely some positive tropes and some negative tropes. And I'll list them for you and see if these check out. So first season had a Mary Sue. Okay, Mary Sue is one of the worst things you could possibly do in writing. And they had that. So I was like, all right, this is not for me. I'm done. Then they had Deus Exes. Q is the best example. Now that could work because he's a god, so that's fine. But they did a lot of stupid shit with him, which doesn't make sense, where he's dying and losing his powers and other crap like that. I think the first season had Riker pop in out of nowhere with a fleet that just, I don't know where, I don't know the context.
The copy-paste fleet, yeah.
The copy-paste. See,
well, they ran out of time, so like they just like recreated the
right, and
Riker's ship over and over again.
Right.
It looked so bad.
And he said a line like, I have this the most top of the line ship in the fleet. It's like, don't you have like 30 of them like right behind you as well? Like, I don't know. But they also
it was such an obvious copy paste. Like, oh, we have this ship model. We don't have time to design unique ones, so we're just going to multiply it.
They also had this magical gizmo that could just do whatever your mind.
Oh, yeah, the magic bullshit device, yeah.
Another Deus Ex, because again, Deus Exes are when a god from something comes out of nowhere and resolves the scenario or plot or character or whatever problem you've got.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? So like, I forget the details of that particular device, but it was like basically like a multi-tool that could make or fix anything that you needed it to.
Right.
And it was... The finale of season 1 of Picard was so weird because you had like major characters that we spent like entire season with, and they just disappeared, and like there was like no resolve to their story arc or what happened to them and stuff like that. And like Narek. Narek's the perfect example of this.
Oh God.
He was the Romulan bad guy who was basically seducing Soji, and like he tried to kill her and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and he just disappeared. Like we were like, what happened to that guy? Like we never found out.
Right, and the sister was just, I am evil sister. I do evil things. It's like that's it. That's her character. She's the evil one. You're like, oh, all right, thanks, story.
And don't get me started on the space flowers.
Yeah, let's not talk about that. I'm gonna go down my list of bad things, and you can tell me if these are right or wrong. The third one is, okay, the first two dreams, Mary Susan Deus Exes, those are already, like, once I see those, I'm checked out. That's done. But there's more. There's a list of 10 at least I've got here. It's amazing. Dream sequences. Now, dream sequences can be used for all kinds of reasons. You can do it to be creative and poetic and try to get an emotion across. But there's so many dream sequences and flashbacks and things I don't understand why they keep doing it. Like I thought we went through the plot with Picard's memory 2 episodes ago, but it came back, and I'm like, okay, we're doing this again. It just keeps happening in the strangest moments. Basically, whenever Picard's on the screen, like when he has a flashbang, or he gets shot at, or he's running from someone, or someone's staring at him through a barrel of a gun. You're like, dude. Can you not have an existential moment when you're about to die about the thing you're not supposed to be talking or thinking about. It's weird. It's I don't understand. And it's not just dream sequences, but
Picard is a synthetic, so he's able to multitask. So while he's
he's
running for his life, he's able to wax philosophical about his childhood trauma that happened like 90 years ago.
And then you have the brain hacking of the dream, which happened, was it last episode? And
it was episode, I want to say 7.
Yeah, it was like, okay, and then that's another dream allegorical bullshit thing, and I'm like, I can't follow this. This is too crazy. And that happens multiple times in the story. So
multiple times in the series.
Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. And I'm like, you could do these things in fantasy and science fiction, no problem. But there's a certain way you build up to that. And it's just like, oh, I'm a watcher. I can do that. You're like, what? He's in a coma. What are you talking about? Oh, yeah, no, it's a problem. I should be able to allegorically slip into his mind and figure out and hopefully lead him out of the darkness. I'm like,
well, they set up with not Laris is what I call her, because the Romulan character from season 1 was named Laris, and this character who looks exactly like Laris is apparently not Laris.
Right.
But it was established that she's able to mind control certain people, like their eyes go white, and she basically steps into their bodies, and she can make them do whatever she wants them to do. And they kind of explain that like she can only do that with people whose, I guess, brains are open to it, in the sense that like someone with a very strong personality, like a board queen, for instance, she wouldn't be able to possess. But when it came to Picard, like he's trapped in his mind prison, reliving past trauma, and so she's able to reverse that mind control thing in order to slip into his head and basically see what's going on in there.
Yeah,
and I was like, this possession power is pretty useful. You'd think that they'd be able to use it throughout the show, but no, like we only saw it in one episode, really.
Yeah, she starts off, or they showcase her as a super secret watcher character, and she's there for a mission, and no one knows what that is. Not even
she hates Guinan for some reason.
Yeah, and it's like they just forget about her mystery and what she's there for, and the fact that there's Romulans on Earth in the 21st century. Like, whoa, what's like? There's a whole story there. Like that's a whole big deal, and they never touch upon it. I'm just a watcher. That's that, and you're like, what? Why? What are you doing? I don't know. I'm just here. You're like, what? You have no clue?
Well, she was assigned to Renee Picard to watch over her.
And that's it.
Which is odd because, like, typically the people whose race it is the one who gets chosen to watch over them. But she's a Romulan who's assigned to Renee Picard for some reason.
Yeah.
And she's been covertly on Earth watching Renee Picard, basically Picard's whole life. I mean, it's weird.
Yeah, and we're going to see a weird thing that's going to happen in this trailer in the next hour or so when we press play. But we're just going to keep going down this list because these are all horrible ideas that could be good, that could be turned good, but the writers don't know what they're doing. So the fourth one is a mixed bag. This could work out well. This could work out poorly. It's usually poorly done. And that's time travel. There's many things you can do in time travel. There's a hard time travel. There's soft time travel. This takes, again, it uses the lore of Star Trek, which they did in the original series in episode, was it 4, The Voyage Home, where they time travel?
It was Star Trek 4, The Voyage Home.
Right. So
slingshot around the sun to save the whale.
Yeah, so once you start doing that, you're like, okay, you got to be very careful how this works. You can't just keep doing it. You can't just allow. So they have a control group, or not a control group, but they had a control with the Borg Queen, and I think it was Spock, because they had this amazing brain that can make calculations on the fly. Therefore, time travel is possible. And you're like, all right, cool. But then you realize, wait a second, if we give the Borg Queen the ship, she can just time travel wherever she wants. So,
like she knows how to do the slingshot maneuver, right?
Yeah.
So when she has the ship, she could literally, she's like, oh, we got a 400-year head start on Great and the Collective. It's like, no, you could literally go back 1,000,000 years and start then.
Right. And this is,
if you really wanted to.
This is an ongoing problem with a lot of Star Trek, and you mentioned that with the teleporter or the transporter. Why don't they just do this? Why don't, they have it, just use it. And
yeah.
But that's pretty much every episode of Star Trek as well. So it's kind of like, all right.
Well, Well, there are exceptions to this. So, like, basically, I know that you're smart enough to know about, like, consistency rules when it comes to narratives, and that we have, like, external consistency, which is what the audience knows. So, like, if you have a six-shooter revolver, you can't, like, have people shoot that 12 times without reloading, because externally people just know that, like, oh, that gun only holds 6 bullets. Then you have, like, internal consistency, which is, like, the logic within the episode, and between those two, like, it's basically a logic problem when it comes to writing. And the idea is that you need to be consistent with these two things, the external and the internal, in order to make sense. And when it comes to time travel, there's so many problematic aspects to it. As long as the writers just firmly establish, okay, here are our time travel rules. These are the rules that we're playing by. And everything that we do is going to align with these rules. Like, that's fine. Like, if they want to do that, even if it doesn't make sense, like when I was watching there's Endgame, and they bothered to explain their time travel rules, which were awful, but they didn't make any sense. But at least they explain them, and you're just like, okay, I'll go along with that. With Star Trek, they've had so many instances of like just playing it fast and loose with time travel. There's like no one set way.
Exactly.
I gotta go, okay, well, if this is in this adventure, if this is what they're going with, that's what I'm going to ascribe to in terms of, like, whether or not I agree with it or not. As long as they've established that these are the rules that they're playing by, I'll go along with it. I'll suspend my disbelief that, in TNG episode like 56, they specifically did this time travel that doesn't make any sense if you use these rules, but, like, you're just like, okay, whatever.
Right.
It doesn't matter at that point.
They did that.
So yeah, go ahead.
They did that with Voyager at the end of the season, or the series rather, and I think Janeway finds some Klingon person who has a time travel device, and you're like, oh, that's handy. That's nice to have.
Well, I mean, like, even in, like, Star Trek Discovery, like, they had, like, a whole thing where, like, the Klingons had, like, a planet that had, like, time crystals to them.
Oh no!
I mean, like, it was really weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, it's with Star Trek, it's hit or miss, but, like, this entire season is based around time travel, right?
Yeah.
So you would think that they would actually take some time to think their stuff through and be consistent with it and have, like, very established rules, but nope, they don't. They just kind of wing it.
Yeah. No, I don't know if winging it is the right way. I think they're already in free fall. They're just falling, and they're like, oh, I can move to the left a bit. I can redirect my trajectory. But you're still.
Well, what's sad is that it's so obvious that this season was simply done to save money for season 3.
Oh yeah.
Like, they go back to contemporary times where, like, they don't have to pay for expensive sets or science fiction stuff or special effects or anything like that, and it's just so obvious, like, why they chose to do, like, a time travel story, and they're not even doing it well. Like, every episode, it's like, okay, we're going to talk about immigration, we're going to talk about poverty, now we're going to do an Ocean's 11 type thing, now we're going to put the FBI stuff in for no good reason. And it's just like, oh my god, come on. Like, have some type of through line here.
That was episode 4 or 5 was just like, hey, let's talk about climate change, let's talk about ice, let's talk about poverty. It's all these things, like, wow, like, what's just tie up and together with anything, or are you just going to mention it and just move on?
Well, what's crazy is, like, episodes like 3 through 6, the Raffi, 7, and Rios storyline go absolutely nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Like, Picard goes off, does, like, his little side quest that ties into the main storyline. It's like, okay, that's cool. We got glimpses of Q doing his thing, trying to change the future. Okay, that's cool. Literally, you could pull out the storyline for Raffi, 7, and Rios and not affect the show at all in those episodes.
Which is weird. Because I actually liked some of the dialogue from Rios and the Doctor. I didn't know where it was going, but I was like, this sounds like humans. They're talking and they're having a discussion, and you're like, that's fine.
Well, also you have to look at like so the development we get with Rios and the Doctor, right? Where like we actually see their relationship form, we see their chemistry together, we see them grow this attraction to one another and this loyalty. It's like why wasn't that time spent with like Raffi and Elnor? Where like Raffi is a character who apparently between seasons 1 and 2 created a deep connection with Elnor, where he became kind of like her surrogate son. But like we didn't get any of that in the first couple episodes, and then by the time Elnor dies and Raffi loses her shit, you're just like, where is this coming from? Because like we didn't see any of this relationship development.
It's more or less what's the attraction between Raffi and anyone, because she is just breaking bridges everywhere she goes. She's lying to everyone.
Yeah. She's a drug user. You know, it's kind of funny because in the first season, she's very much about the class warfare, where she's like Picard has, like the fancy chateau with all the expensive furniture, and I'm like, I thought this society moved past money.
Well,
why is she in the class warfare camp?
Yeah, that was a chateau that burned to the ground, and then he replicated a new one with all the new furniture, and you're like, Raffi, this is new. I just made this. What do you want one?
And Raffi chose to live out in the middle of the desert in a camper trailer, basically. It's like, dude, like you don't need money in future society. You could literally have anything you want replicated. So, like, where is the class warfare coming from?
So, talking about Raffi, this is my fifth next. Like, time travel is a big topic we can go into. Just to mention is good enough because it's poorly done. But the fifth one is Hallucinations, and that's done with Raffi and I think Picard as well, mostly Raffi, where she just starts seeing Elnor in random places. It happened at least twice.
Yeah.
And they use the same actor, and I'm like, don't do that. Use a different actor, but you can't see his face well, and then you turn him around, it's not Elnor, you're wrong. And I'm like, what is going on with Raffi? Is she crazy? Is she having a mental breakdown? Like, I don't understand what's going on, because usually when you have any kind of neurological issue or psychological issue, the future has already solved this problem. It's not a huge problem. We can, get you scanned, figure it out. Oh, you got this thing. Boom, we'll remove it. But she's like, oh my God, I saw Elnor again. Oh wait, no, he's not. And then she flips out the third time when she sees a holographic Elnor. And for whatever reason, even though she knows it's not real, she has a conversation a bit and starts expressing why she feels guilt. And you're like, Elnor, he's not real, right?
Well, one of the weird things about this season is like the central theme of the season is one of mental health and dealing with trauma. In fact, I think in the FBI episode, Guinan said something like human beings are always trapped in the past, and so like we're kind of destined to relive our trauma or whatever the crap you want to talk about. And with every character in the show this season, they're kind of exploring the different types of trauma. Like Seven's dealing with like her not being Borg anymore and what happened to her during the Borg, and like she reconciles the Borg side. You have Picard dealing with like the death of his mother. You have Raffi dealing with the death of her surrogate son. You have Rios, who I don't think he's dealt with any trauma or whatever. But then you have Murder Dr. Girardi, who's like the ray of sunshine. It's just weird, man. That the central theme of this season has been like so depressing and like stupid. They're not I said like it's a very special season of Picard, because like the entire season's like one of those after school specials about dealing with like PTSD and trauma and stuff like that.
Right.
And I feel like if they want to make that like a message, like okay, devote an episode to it, but then move on, because like I remember the Netflix Punisher, I think season 2 dealt with like PTSD as its central theme, and it just gets depressing after a while, man. It's just like like we don't want to be immersed for like 8 to 10 hours in this theme. It's like if you want to bring light to it, that's fine. Do an episode about it, get your message across, then move on, because this stuff is meant to be entertainment.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be social commentary.
I found the ending to that episode was episode 8 with Guinan talking to Picard about how humans are special because we don't let go of the past. And he's like, nods his head, yeah. And it's like, wait a second, you're trying to tell me no one in the entire galaxy have trauma? They don't deal with trauma. They don't deal with pain or hurt or loss.
Memories. Yeah.
No one. Only humans. We're the ones that evolve. We evolve from our pain. None of the other, all the other galaxy inhabitants, they're already evolved. They're waiting to evolve in another manner. It's only humans that makes us. I was like, what are you? Are you serious, Guinan? You are like older than the rest of us. You should know a lot better than everyone else. And you're just going, oh yeah, I forgot. Humans, you like pain and stuff, and you learn from it. You're like, what? Really? Only us? So that irked me because I did some studies in the university where psychology is pretty much innate to every living thing. It's not just humans. Even earthworms can learn from pain. It's called behavioral psych. But that's a weird message to give to humanity, or the galaxy rather. So anyway, hallucinations. The sixth one, and this is another psych one, multiple personality disorder, which does not exist. This was written down in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of the 60s, and this has been...
Hey, man, haven't you ever watched Moon Knight?
No. Thankfully. Nowadays, it's called dissociative identity disorder, or DID, but this is when you look at Fight Club, or Memento, or A Tale of Two Sisters, or what was that M. Night Shyamalan movie with the kid who sees ghosts? It's the Sixth Sense. Anytime you show on the screen something as a third-person omniscient viewer, like the camera should be, you are showing the audience the truth. And in those movies, or even in what's happening in Picard, we have characters on screen who aren't actually there. It's in their minds. And that's where I not get too confused. I know what's going on because they blatantly spell it out that Girardi is talking to the queen in her head, but she's literally talking to her like if she was just standing and talking to the wall. And this is what drives me nuts, because if she could hear your thoughts, can't you do the same with her? Why are you physically letting the words out of your mouth? Like, it's a very strange relationship we've got going with the two people. And I'm like, you could have done this a bit more elegantly. I think the queen would have done it a bit more elegantly. I did like the element of using neurotransmitters and how she's so focused on those, and the twist of what that means. I thought that was at least something. That how she got control, because the endorphins made her feel good, so Girardi can relax, which gives her which doesn't make too much sense as far as the Borg. Like, oh, you're happy, therefore I can invade your mind faster or better. You're like, okay, whatever, Borg, that's fine. But the fact that they went that way.
I hate Girardi so much. Like, I've hated her since season 1.
The murder doctor.
Terrible character. Yeah, the murder doctor. But like the worst thing is like, so like they had a situation here where she basically was forced to kill the Borg queen in order to save the life of like some poor schlub from the 20th century. And the Borg queen implants her nanoprobes into Girardi. And instead of telling her crew, it's like, hey, I think I got infected by the Borg queen. You need to keep me under wraps or behind bars or sedate me or something, because I don't know how this is going to affect the mission. She just keeps it to herself.
Yeah. And
until like the Borg queen takes her over, and then like she becomes like the biggest threat that there is. And it's just like, like if she were, well, first of all, if they were smart, they would never have left Girardi alone with the Borg queen to begin with, because she's proven time and time again that she's an idiot.
I can't believe they left her hanging by her own volition on the ceiling. I don't know if you noticed when the ship crashed, the Borg queen fell, and then she used her tentacles, whatever, to come back up.
Mm-hmm.
And then she just stayed there. And I thought, oh, clever. She looks like she's still stuck, but she did this all herself. But she just stays there, and then she has to do this bullshit with the changing her voice.
There's this weird thing where Girardi left the ship to go sleep on the couch in the derelict Chateau Picard, leaving the Borg queen completely unsupervised or unguarded.
Yeah.
And the Borg queen then somehow uses voice pattern recognition to trick the ship into allowing her to take over these local cell towers so that she can call the police in order to have like someone come there that she can like attack and take over, like whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, like the most contrived story plot point you could think of.
Yeah,
That's what these writers are resorting to.
I thought she was already jacked into the ship, drawing power and doing all these other things, but apparently no. She was just drawing power to live, and the ship is weak or whatever. The shimmering on the cloak wasn't perfect, so the French policeman's like, "Oh, there's a spaceship over." Like, what? Did anyone think about that? Hiding the ship a little better, but that landing, my God, Picard is such an amazing pilot. He landed that ship from orbit directly near his
property. Yeah,
that's amazing. Like he was in a crash landing mode, and he landed correctly in his like 50 yards from the chateau or something. Like, wow, that is impressive. So, the old man still got it. I mean, he's amazing. Gotta give it to him. Okay, so that was number 6, multiple personality disorder, and I have a problem with that as a moviegoer. This at least dealt with some of the issues, but the way they executed it was not very good. So it's probably the better one on this list. Number 7 is Neon Genesis Evangelion, and I say this jokingly because anytime I mention that in any capacity is usually a bad thing I'm trying to refer to. And that,
do you mean in terms of the original ending of that show?
Well, that's usually it, but there's other elements of that show which drive me nuts. In this case, it is the Dummy Plug Project, which is the subplot with Soong, which goes nowhere. I don't even know why they introduced it, why they had not Soji in the story. She just checked out. She just left last episode.
Well, they needed something for that actor to do because she was under contract.
Yeah, they were paying her, so we're like, oh, we're paying her, we may as well have her do something, so let's put her in the story. So,
well, let's make her look like a little boy first, and then put her in the story.
I'm not sure what they were trying to do. Is he cloning her? Is he making life? Is he just doing things under board so no one notices what he's doing? We know that Soong is unethical, but is there some master plan? Like there's no reasoning why he did this. He says, "Oh, any humans can procreate." And you're like, "Yeah, but you want a legacy, so why don't you procreate and have a legacy and have a kid that's healthy and follows in your footsteps or whatever?" You made life so you could make her life difficult, and you failed dozens and dozens of, like, really a long amount of time.
Yeah, they're not really clear on what his project is. I think like he's trying to do something where like he creates like the genetically perfect human, and he just keeps like messing it up for some reason.
Yeah, no,
it's very strange. Like I don't really get it.
Yeah, as soon as they introduced him in episode 4 or 3, I was like, oh, this is not gonna work out very well. So I don't know what they were doing with him. He is just excess baggage at this point, and we'll get into episode 9 about that. But I was like laughing when I saw this. Like, you have a bunch of test tubes of eggs or whatever, and you're just making people.
Well, the crazy thing is that not Soji, the girl who is his failed experiment or whatever. So like she is allergic to sunlight and air and pretty much anything outside.
Yeah.
So she just hangs out in the house all day, right? And then, like, one day, he just, like, walks into, like, her dad's lab, and he just happens to have a window up with all his video diaries talking about, his experiments. And also, she Googles him for the first time and finds out, oh, he's a mad scientist. It's like, you literally can't leave the house. You're, like, in your 20s. You mean to tell me you've never Googled your dad, you've never, gone into his lab and, like, what was on the screen. It was just, like, contrived.
Her story, why she's angry, I was like confused because let's say he is an evil, mad genius, whatever. Did he ever hurt her? Did he ever do anything bad aside from lie about her origin? I was trying to go through the idea of why is she so angry. It's like she lied about her having a mom, and he never told her about the experiment he's conducting. That's why she's angry. And I'm like, that's not. I mean, you live in a pretty nice place. He wanted you to go outside. He thought you were cured. He brought you outside. He was hugging you. You were swimming. He's like, wow, this is great. Why would he keep you in the house even if you were cured? Like, what would possess him to do that? I don't understand. I
don't think he would. I think he'd want his experiment to succeed. I think the issue there was that, like he never actually loved her. He loved the fact that his work was succeeding, and that was like the thing is like he felt betrayed by him.
That's a weird thing to accuse your father of. You don't love me, Dad. It's like, and then he says, I do love you. I also love my work. I'm like, yeah, okay. This is what parents do. This is more than just an average parent. Of course, he's a broken man. He's lost all funding. He can't do genetics anymore. He's stuck with this one daughter. He finally has a daughter after all his attempts. This is pretty much a story of any family trying to have a kid, and they lose the first one in childbirth, or they lose the second one in an accident, and they get the third one. And they go, oh my God. Like they've gone past the stages of grief. Like if not Soji dies, he'd be angry, but he wouldn't be like any more broken than he is right now. And
that's the thing, though, is like I don't think he ever actually cared about her and the other kids. He cared about the work. And there's a scene where he comes home. I don't know if he's drunk or what, but he had just run over Picard, and he sits on the couch and he kind of like talks to Soji for the first time, like how he really feels. Like he's not putting on the air of a concerned parent. He was just like, like, look, you're my creation, you're my work, you're my legacy. Beyond that, you don't matter to me. And she picked up on that. I don't think it was done well, but it was definitely there.
All right.
So.
Okay, well that's the thing I was a bit confused on, because I was like, yeah, it's Evangelion, but what does it mean? Like, what's he trying to do? It never touched upon it. Just he does stuff in the lab, makes people, and he's uncaring for some reason. So that was number 7. Number 8, we have 3 more to go. Sorry I'm going through this list, but this is all the bad writing things I've noticed, and I thought you'd get off on this. The magical knockout memory wipe gas that Agnes is somehow immune to. So in any kind of fiction, mostly you see dumb ideas like murder mysteries where you have the knockout darts or the drops or something where someone takes a drink and they knock out, and there's always undetectable, you don't know what it is. Agnes's plan was to get captured, somehow get access to her purse, have this canister that not only knocks you out, but wipes out your short-term memory, I guess. I don't know what or how where that came from. And it's like we have all this technology. It's like, have you ever, I don't remember seeing that in Star Trek or having this explained. It was just this thing she's got, this magical vial of knockout gas, which she's immune to. I was like, wow, how convenient. That was great.
Well, apparently it was a projectile thing, so like it sprayed it in their direction, so it was blow back on her.
She didn't.
But when I was watching that scene, I was like, why couldn't they just teleport that gas into that room, and then teleport someone in there to upload the virus? It's just like really, like you needed someone to get captured and just happen to be taken to the security room that you needed to be in.
And then
the Ocean's 11 segment of this season, which is what I call those 2 episodes where they were breaking into the party. I was like, there's so much wrong here.
Yeah.
There's so much stupid on display here. There's so much better ways that they could have done this.
Yeah.
It's just it gets frustrating watching the show because the amount of bullshit that you're forced to accept, the amount that you're forced to turn your brain off just to get through the episode is very difficult.
Yeah, in that same scene, she asked for help from the Queen, and she immediately has super strength. And you're like, oh, she has super strength, and she can't access that herself. Only the Queen can do that. And you're like, okay. And they always show that. This is what I hate in a lot of fiction, and at least in visual TV shows or movies. Someone's eyes, their entire eyeballs change color, and they become whatever. They turn superhuman and they do stuff now, and then it goes away, and their eyes turn to normal, and I'm like, oh, this is dumb. So I don't know why. It just drives me nuts whenever I see it. They even did that with Elnor, the hologram. They even did that in season 1 with the hologram in the vault that Picard was in. Their eyes flicker, and they're accessing data, or Elnor is accessing the key to unlock the ship, and his eyes have to do something different. It's like, can you stop with the special effects with the eyeballs? There's no reason. It's just cosmetic. Stop it. But anyway, that's a personal thing. It's a very big nitpick of mine. It's not a big deal. Anyway, number 9, spontaneous choreography. Okay, you know what I'm talking about. The Agnes singing, magical spotlight man, magical band playing. They all have energy again. Their amplifiers work. They all know to sing and dance with her, and it's just like, oh, when was this planned? Who set? Like, this would have been great if the Borg Queen set this up to really sell Agnes to get those endorphins going. But it never, like, there was nothing. It just happens. And I was like, is this a joke? Is this a musical? Is Agnes having an hallucination? Because I'm expecting some bullshit to happen, but no, this is real. The power immediately comes back on, only in that part.
Yeah, you know what that was? Is like basically Alison Pill can sing, and the writers were like, oh, we should give her like a moment where she sings, and like, you know, like that'll make her really happy. And so like they figure out a way to shoehorn in a musical number in the episode, and like, you know, she was doing it as a way to distract the security from Picard and the crew, so like they could get Renee. But at the same time, you're just like this is such a stupid idea.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it as a distraction. Like, I think it's fine. I just want it set up. I want it explained. I want to know how we got from A to B, and to turn that into a master plan.
Well, also how her Borg Queen nanobots can selectively turn off the lights and like not affect anything else, and then the lights come back on a little bit later.
Oh yeah, the electronic nanopulse or whatever the hell she called it.
Yeah, something like that.
I was like, okay, that's a weird.
And you're just making shit up now.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind technobabble or making new lore. I just want it. What does this do? And you're like, oh, so now what? Oh, so you can infect people and control them remotely through lighting or I don't know, electricity. Like, that'd be awesome. What a cool setup, Miss Borg Queen. Now you can get those endorphins going and go for a walk downtown. That'd be great. And so it's like, oh, okay, that would have been nice. Little one or two lines of dialogue. It's amazing that they're so close to explaining themselves or having the opportunity to, but they're too stupid. They just did not think that extra step ahead to go, oh yeah, this probably won't work. Anyway, number 10, mind control. Mind control I hate in general. I'm okay with it with the Watcher. I don't like it so much with the whole Borg Queen stuff, because that's a little too, like, the fighting. I'm having a fight in my mind over neurotransmitters. I'm like, what? How does that? There's two prevailing personalities. I'm like, that, no. We're going back to MPD bullshit again. So mind control, if it's done in a very small way, and it was done relatively well with Talon, I thought, okay, that I could buy. It's the other stuff that, like the underpowered nanoprobes. Suddenly she has an army that just sucks at their job, which we'll get into later. So,
well, you know, they also mentioned in that episode where she was eating all the carbohydrates, inferior metals bring about inferior assimilation. So, like, I was thinking that when she started assimilating the mercenaries, that there was going to be something where, like, the mercenaries could be reasoned with, and, like, there was a way for them to come back from having been assimilated, or something along those lines. Like, they kind of set that up and then, like, didn't go anywhere with it. Surprise. My bigger issue with the mind control stuff is that it was a plot device that didn't really go anywhere. And the entire time I'm watching this show, especially when they were doing like the Ocean's 11 breaking into the gala, I was like, why doesn't not Laris just mind control some of these security guys to like let them through, or implant the like the data disk so that they can upload their fake identities, or, you know, like if a security guard's about to arrest Picard, just take him over and be like, come with me, sir, and then escort him away, or something. Like there's so much stuff that you can do with like that mind control once it's been introduced, that unless you put very specific limits on it, it's basically a deus ex machina to basically get out of any jam that you're in. Like, why didn't not Laris, I guess she wasn't there, but I was going to say, take over the mind of the FBI guy and let them go. You know, like there's so much stuff that you can do with mind control that unless you put very strict limits on it and how it works, it can break the story. And, the writers just choose to ignore this stuff rather than explain it away.
Right. So, we can go on about mind control because she was just not there in episode 8 for no reason, and she's suddenly back in episode 9, and this is what we're...
Well, she wasn't there, not Lars wasn't there in episode 8 because she hates Guinan for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
Picard was going to Guinan. They never explained why she doesn't like Guinan.
Okay.
Just that, like if she sees her, she's going to, scratch her eyes out. But because Picard was visiting with the Guinan, nothing to do with it.
Yeah, anything that has the last name Picard, Laris, or not Laris loves. It just happens. So... I don't know why. Anyway, so we have the Renee plot still going on. We have the Q plot. We have the Soong plot, which is who knows. And then we have the Not Soji plot because she's off doing her own thing. Guinan's out of the picture. Everyone else is together with Picard and I believe Borg, was it? Yeah, the Borg Queen is off doing her own thing.
Yeah, Galaxy. We call her Jaborgi.
Jaborgi? Yeah. I heard
Jaborgi.
That. I was
Gerati and Borg.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into episode 9. Every scene, and I argue this very strongly, every scene has a problem or builds another or creates a new problem that could have been easily solved or just not addressed. And when I was listening to your podcast, I was like, guys, you cannot I think Mike was defending. He liked the episode, but he didn't like the suicide scene. He was like, that is the most nitpickiest, weirdest thing I've heard anyone say about episode 9. The cord wasn't done. The noose wasn't done properly.
Well, that Salty Trekkers thing, and he just likes to his whole thing was he wanted a more gruesome death for Picard's mother, where she unravels, hits the ground, her eye pops up, Picard starts stabbing her in the head with it. Like that.
Yeah,
I think he was being a bit tongue in cheek about that part.
I hope so, because I was like, of all the stupid things I could have heard from someone, that was the worst. It's like, what? It wasn't goofy enough for you? Like, okay. So one of the problems I had with this episode was, well, two things. From the previous one, we see Gerati assimilate the one guy, and this is a room full of women. There's like 2 guys, and the rest are all women mercs. I've never seen women mercs in my life. And then in episode 9, they're all men. I don't know what happened to the women. But she assimilates one dude. Everyone around her is like, yeah, that's cool. That's fine. They don't question it. Soong doesn't question it. And I'm like, if you're going to do everyone, do Soong. Control Soong. He is the guy. She even knows Soong is the guy who's going to be the godfather of the Confederation that will kill her or kill her entire empire. And you're like, what are you waiting for? And this is a good argument because this is what Picard is trying to stop. And maybe Picard doesn't want to kill Soong because he knows Soong is going to go on to make Data or whatever, but just disable him, and that'll be fine. Keep Soong away from the launch, and you've won. The Queen gets what she wants. Picard gets what she wants. They could argue about who gets the ship. Or I don't know, Gerati could be power hungry and kill Soong, or there's lots of things that could happen. But that was so obvious. It's like he's just a pawn to you. You needed his satellites. I don't even know why she needed his satellites. There was no.
Yeah, I guess to find where the La Serena was or something. I have no idea.
But she knew where. It was so strange. And okay, so fine, she has her army.
But before you go any further, I just want to point this out, that her goal was to capture the La Serena spaceship so that she can start assimilating people 400 years ahead of time and build up her army and her war collective and stuff like that.
Yeah, which I thought was dumb.
In the previous episode, so she was on the La Serena, she injected it with her nanoprobes that if anyone came looking for it, it would lock out that person and shut down the teleporters, and so only she could control it. So she already has control of the La Serena. She leaves to go eat some batteries and recruit Soong and mercenaries, and then goes back to recapture it. She literally, when she did the first injection, could have just taken the ship up into space and flown off and lasagna, don't get any on you,
Yeah. And
there's no reason for her to leave.
I was hoping for the argument with Gerati saying, you're so dumb. Why didn't you just take the ship in the first place? But no, you wanted to go to a jazz club. You wanted to break, like you wanted to get that endorphin hit because you're lonely. Like I wanted more reasoning to showcase her dumbness, because that's what you do in stories. When you see flaws, someone points them out and goes, "This is your downfall, evil person. Look."
Also, like, if you really want to get deep in the weeds on this and have some debate and have your mind blown. So here's the thing about Soon, right? When the board queen is having her argument with Girardi in this episode, Girardi's like, you're literally creating the reality or the timeline where your entire collective gets wiped out. And she's like, you humans, you only see the branch, you never see the tree, right? In the respect that, like, there's something bigger at play there than what Girardi and Picard and stuff like that are seeing. And so the idea here is that she doesn't want to take over Soon because he has a role to play in bringing about the Confederation timeline, right? And if you think about it, okay, if you really get deep into, like, the time travel stuff, so in the very first episode, the board queen shows up with her new collective. She gets on the ship. She starts assimilating the fleet. Picard is forced to enact the self-destruct thing, which then bounces them into the Confederation timeline. And so the argument here is that the board queen knows that unless she can set these events in motion, she never, gets to that point, right? Like, in order for her to exist, Picard has to go to that alternate timeline. He's got to rescue her, take her back in time so that she can join with Girardi and then go off and do their board stuff to the point where they can then time travel to episode 1 and create, like, the time flux to begin with.
Right.
So in that sense, it's a single timeline theory where everything that happened, and it has to happen in order for the events to play out. But at the same time, they're trying to change the future back to the original timeline, in which case this board queen Girardi mixture would never exist, and so, like, they wouldn't exist to come back in the first place. So it would have to be an alternate timeline, like a parallel timeline type thing, in order for it to make any sense.
But
and as it stands right now, it doesn't make any sense.
But isn't that what she
all.
wants, though? She wants to have that better timeline where she's in control of, like, a whole fleet of whatever compared to when she got captured in the Confederate timeline?
Well, in the first episode timeline, right, when she comes out of that temporal displacement thing with, like, the big board ship, and she, like, beams onto the deck to talk to Picard. So we assume that at this point, that's the result of her and Girardi doing the voluntary assimilation stuff, where they go to the galaxy and they save people, and they don't assimilate civilizations, they just assimilate people who want to be assimilated, right? So they're the kinder, gentle. We call it board back better at this point, and so, like, that's their collective is a group of people who actually, like, wanted to be a part of something more, who were, like, lonely, who suffered from mental illness or something like that. They were, like, the dregs of society that they would assimilate and lift them up through their assimilation. Essentially, that was Girardi's whole pitch to the board queen, and she was like, why not try it? Because every other eventuality, like, you guys end up getting wiped out. But, like, if you think of it from, like, the time travel perspective, none of this stuff works.
Right.
It just doesn't, because it creates this time loop that has to happen, but then it makes Picard's original mission pointless, because you can't fix the timeline if that's the case, because everything that happens has to happen in order to get you to that point.
Oh, I see. So the hard rule for time travel: something has to occur. It must occur because we've already seen it happen.
Yeah, because the Borg-Radi character, the joining of Girardi and the board, can't exist to go to that point where Picard, blows up the entire fleet, and Q has to, like, snap him over to, like, to a different timeline.
Right.
Unless that happens, right?
So the other plot line dealing with Renee and or Soong, depending on which route time goes, has to do with solving an ecological disaster. We don't know exactly what that is, because hopefully we're going to find out in episode 10 that Renee finds some life form that, I don't know, solves fixing the ozone layer. I have no idea. Or we have Soong's shields. Like, we don't know what Soong can do to fix the ecological disaster that could be happening. But even in the 25th century, the planet is still pretty much messed up. And there's all these shields.
We know Soong had like a version of the planetary shield for the ozone over his pool. Like, we saw it in that episode where it was keeping out the harmful rays that were affecting Soji.
Yeah, I know.
So, like, the idea is that because Soong is like the creator of the Confederation in this darker timeline, he somehow adapts his pool canopy technology into a worldwide shield that protects the ozone layer or something like that. Which, oddly enough, is also very similar to the shield that in the new Discovery timeline, 1,000 years in the future, has around it, which is kind of weird. So
interesting. Yeah, no, I just found it funny that he had this array of drones that just had shield technology. I'm like, that's really advanced. And you're a geneticist? Like, how is this connected? I don't know.
He's a geneticist. He's a roboticist. He's a visionary. He's basically like, a Gary Stu type character, except he's really bad at running over 90-year-old men.
And being a father, yeah.
yeah, he's a terrible father. And one of the things that got me is that, so when Borgrati tells him that he has this destiny where, like, he can either be forgotten in the annals of time, or he can be the father of, like, this grand, human first confederation, all he needs to do is stop the Europa mission, right? But he's like a major donor to the Europa mission foundation, or like whatever it is. And he's got political connections, and he's got money, and he's got technology. Like, he calls up a general to get those mercenaries for the end of episode 8. So I'm like, why can't he just use like his political connections and money to either postpone or cancel the Europa mission, or even just get Renee pulled off for psychological reasons, like bribe a psychiatrist, bribe Q to just go to the board and be like, oh, Renee Picard is not mentally fit to be on this mission. Like, there were lots of ways he could have done it. And but getting back to your other point, it's like, after like the first one or two mercenaries getting assimilated, you think those other guys would be like, something's up here, and be like, I don't want to be assimilated. Leave me alone, crazy lady.
Well, yeah, talking about those weird, I don't even know if they're Borg, because they don't showcase any Borg skills or abilities. They're just dudes with guns and green laser pointers. And if you know anything about military operations, you don't have lighting to showcase where you are. You turn those off. You fight in the dark.
Well, I mean, that's a stylistic choice, but like, I don't mind that type of thing. But yeah, it's dumb. Everything about the show is dumb.
Yeah, so they have no skills that relate to the Borg. It was when Elnor was picking up a gun or guns and he put them back, I was like, okay, he knows how to fight Borg, because Borg have shields, and like that might make some sense. But they never actually showed us.
These Borg don't have shields. These Borg are just humans who are mind controlled by the Queen.
Right. So when he pulls out a sword, I'm like, okay, this makes some sense. But you have to tell the audience that this is why he's doing that, because what the hell is he doing? Why would anyone pull a sword?
But the funny thing is like, he could just have like a holographic sword made for him, and because it's like tactile, like it's hard light or like whatever, he could have any number of melee weapons just like appear in his hands if he wanted to.
Right. And he didn't bother to think about that, or Girardi never thought of that, or like, pick up as many weapons as you could hold. How's that? Have one gun in one hand, have one sword in another, or one gun in your pocket.
Also, the dumbest thing was him avoiding getting shot by bullets. It's like, dude, you're a hologram. Like, you can get shot an infinite amount of times. It wouldn't affect you.
This is what you guys talked about on the podcast. This was, a lot of people picked up on this, because when he was emulated from the ship, he came with a mobile emitter. So that either means it's a holographic mobile emitter, which is just stupid, or it was created by the ship to be a mobile emitter.
So the weird thing is that we kind of came to the conclusion on the podcast is that the reason that Girardi created the holographic Elnor was to basically protect the code that kept the Borg Queen from unlocking the keys to the ship. And the way that she did that was she put the code in that mobile emitter so that it was air-gapped, like it wasn't something that was connected to the ship. And Elnor was wearing it around his arm, and so like as long as Elnor could keep it away, she couldn't get to it. Of course, this is kind of negated by the fact that later on, Elnor just, I guess, beams the code into the ship using his eyeballs, and the Seven unlocks the ship that way. So like we really don't know what the purpose of the mobile emitter was. Was it a holographic creation, or was it like a full mobile emitter that going to be on Elnor, and so at a certain point it was very, very strange.
Right, and this was
no explanation or setup to it.
This was also brought up a problem from a few episodes back, because we learned from Girardi that the ship can just make any hologram from whoever came on the ship, and this is a ship from the alternate timeline where it's a big military and Confederacy. And I'm thinking, okay, don't they have like a bunch of people on file? Wasn't one of those people like a field medic or a doctor? And
or even like, couldn't she have made like 10 Elnor to just kill all the mercenaries that are on the ship?
Yeah, make her own holographic army that's unstoppable. It's just like, okay, go for it. Like the thing with Picard having to go to I don't know why they took her to the clinic with the doctor lady. It's like, okay, that whole bullshit with using the nano, whatever, neural transceiver, whatever the hell.
I mean, the crazy thing is that, like, they have bio beds in the med bay on that ship, right? Which are infinitely better than anything in a free immigrant clinic. So, there's a line at the end of, I want to say it's episode 6, where basically Soong just runs over Picard, and what's his name, Rios, is like, we don't have time to get him to a bio bed. Let's teleport him instead of to our ship with all of our advanced medical technology to the free clinic downtown.
Yeah, well, he said this is a bio bed's not a doctor, and I was like, what?
Yeah, bio bed's not a doctor. But I mean, like, it's something that could stabilize him. And then, like, if they had done it this way, like, they could have justified him revealing himself and, you know, his crew and his ship and his technology to the doctor because he needed to get her there because she would be able to help him. Or alternately, just have, like, you know, like, emergency medical program run. So, like, you know, you get a doctor there to, like, you know, get Robert Picardo in to look at him or something like that.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And I mean, like, there's just so much stupid stuff. It's like, you mean to tell me that this ship, the minute you step on it, it can read your brain, it can read your thoughts, it can record your emotions, it can literally get all your memories just by being on the ship, and then create an exact holographic representation of you? Like, really? Like, the ship's that advanced?
Yeah, I thought there was an EMH on the ship from first season. Maybe I'm wrong, but I could have sworn there was an engineer.
Well, in the first season, there were various holographic crewmen that were all based on Rios.
Right.
And he had, like, the doctor, and he had, like, you know, the mechanic and stuff like that. And at the start of this season, they merged all those different holograms into one hologram that Seven was using to help her run the ship. And for some reason, he spoke Spanish or something like that.
Yeah.
And they kind of established that, but this is a different La Serena, because it's the La Serena from the Confederate timeline, and we don't know what type of holographic programs are on there, but I'm like, well, you know, if they could have made like holographic Elnor, it's like, why not have like a bunch of them guarding the Queen, why not have, like, a bunch of them killing the mercenaries, you know, like there's all types of stuff you could have done with like the holographic technology. It's like, hey, let's have like holographic Rioses on the ship so like he can continue running it and fixing it and stuff like that while we're off, you know, doing our mission. It's a fundamental problem of this show where they set up these things that would solve so many different problems, but they choose to ignore them simply because if they actually addressed them, it would kill all the drama or suspense or just make the episode 2 minutes long if they actually utilized it.
This is the problem with a lot of science fiction. You have to have these hard rules, or else you can just do anything. That's why I mentioned in general concept, if you could transport people and build them, like break them down to subatomic particles, put them in a matter stream, shoot them off to a planet, and then rebuild them, the whole concept of medicine or just growing old is irrelevant, because you can just, I have a faulty liver, let me go into the matter stream, replace all my molecules, replace all my subatomic particles, let alone molecules, to a healthy liver, and boom, I'm fine. And
well, you don't even have to go that far. Like in this time period in Star Trek 4, right? McCoy gives someone a pill that regrows a kidney in the hospital, and like, you know, he's like, what am I in the Dark Ages here? And you know, you watch Picard, and Picard, you know, obviously was born, you know, post original series timeline. So like they're living in a post original series world, and you mean to tell me that they don't have a way to regulate brain chemistry to keep his manic depressive mom from killing herself?
Yeah, I was watching the Nitpicking Nerd, who's also Major Grin. Major Grin, he has the avatar of Phlox with that big smile in episode 1 of Enterprise.
Yeah, I heard Nerdrotic shout him out. Apparently he's doing good work.
Yeah, he actually showed us, I can't remember where it was in TNG, where they said they've pretty much eliminated all mental illness. And they have counselors on board ships because they deal with stress and people interactions. So why didn't they solve this problem of a mom having suicidal tendencies? And what the hell was Picard's dad doing, locking her up in a room? When was he even a counselor, or was that just made up in Picard's memory? I
think that was made up.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the weird things of mind prison, which is basically Picard gets hit by Soon's car, right? 90-year-old guy. Yeah, he's synthetic, but he's aging like a normal 90-year-old. Didn't break any bones, didn't get any concussions or anything like that. He just had a little blood coming from the mouth. They teleport him to the free clinic, where basically they use a defibrillator, however you pronounce it, to stabilize his vitals. But when they do that, his synthetic body does like some type of feedback thing that shorts out the defibrillator. And at that point, my headcanon comes in and says that, like, basically the feedback loop from that thing triggered some type of like mental loop where he was like stuck in his own memories. They didn't explain this in the show. In the show, like after they stabilize him physically, he's just like in a coma and he can't break out, even though his brainwaves are way more active than what a normal coma patient's in. And so in the next episode, when Not Laris goes in to kind of like lead him out of his mind prison, he's in there and he's in a session with James Callis, who's a great actor. He's from Battlestar Galactica. But James Callis is basically a representation of his father. And so like I'm watching this back and forth between like, Picard and his dad. And when he finally remembers that this is his dad, I'm like, this is weird, because it's not like in season 1 where he was having a conversation with Data, and Data's like positronic essence was like still out there in the ether somewhere, so it was actually Data talking to him when he was like dreaming. This is basically just a memory of Picard's father, and it's like Picard's basically talking to himself, and he's talking to his dad. He's coming to all these like weird realizations and stuff like that, and it's just like. It's so weird, because in this episode, when he's having the flashback to his dad and his mom, these are actual memories, and his dad's actually acting like the way that Picard remembers him acting, whereas opposed to the interaction that they have in the Mind Prison episode, where it almost feels like the father's supposed to be like a ghost or some type of representation of the actual father who's having a conversation with his like grown son. And it's like, no, like, that's not how it works. Like, this is basically Picard's mental representation of his dad. And he's having a conversation with himself.
Yeah.
And so, like, all the revelations fall flat because you're like, Picard's just talking to himself.
Yeah, and there's no recollection of the rest of his family. His brother's not there. Who I don't want to go to lore too much because they've already changed it and to make whatever they want. But the idea that the little brother was always the troublemaker and breaking all the rules. And it's like if that just had more of a family unit, because all these mind dreamscapes are like, it's Picard trying to have fun with his mom, and the dad's evil, and then we find out, no, the dad's not evil, the mom's crazy, and you're like, oh. And we already addressed that 2 episodes ago. We're going back to it again. It's like, Picard, like, can we connect this somehow? Because is he gonna have another dreamscape tomorrow where he's playing another game with his mom, or he's breaking the rules with his dad? Like, where is this going? Like, that's kind of what I expected the Picard series to be, which was this whole sort of retrospective on his life and whatever things he dealt with. But it's literally a dreamscape in his robot mind, body, whatever, which could be explained by Data's ability to dream, and they try to make a whole race of robots. And when I thought of him getting hit by a car, I was just like, what if it's like the robot body takes over and goes like, no, I'm not going to brake. I'm gonna just turn on the hydraulics, and just boom, the car just wrecks into Picard, and he just stands there while the front of that whatever car just gets wrecked. I'm like, it probably would be funny, but no.
Well, the thing that gets me the most is that at the end of season 1, they established that so Picard's basically dead, right? And the only this new Picard is basically like a synthetic body that has all of his own memories, and they set up the fact that he ages just like he normally would age. He feels just like he normally would feel at that age. He's basically, for all intents and purposes, a frail, fractured human, right? But he just happens to be a robot. And so when a 90-year-old dude gets hit by a car going like 60 miles an hour, gets flung onto the hard, asphalt, and doesn't suffer like a single broken bone or anything like that, and yet his hand can still get bruised from an IV, which they established in the FBI episode. It's like, come on.
Yeah, something's off. It's like
he'd be dead. He'd be freaking dead.
Yeah. It's a bit strange. We can go into other aspects of episode 9. I remember some of the dialogue from 7, like she wanted to set up traps, and Picard, not at that point in time, but he says that this whole underground is basically a death trap, or you could die 10,000 times over or whatever. You're like, that's nope, he's fine. There's no traps. There's no.
Yeah. Also, like when he was a kid, you'd think that his dad would have like used like modern technology to get rid of all the death traps.
Well,
like instead of wood being over that well, like let's have, I don't know, steel, maybe fill that well in so like no one can fall into it.
Yeah, and in his mind, there's like a hanging skeleton. I was like, did he make that up, or is that like literally what he saw, 400 years in the future? Because now that there's Borg bodies hanging in the walls.
Yeah, that was trippy, man. Where like basically 3 Borg mercenaries get teleported into the walls of the catacombs beneath Chateau Picard, and you're like, did Picard's ancestors like find those guys and be like, what the fuck is this? Like dig them out of like the walls and give them proper burials, or like were they just down there and like they became like skeletons?
Yeah, I thought
it was very weird.
I thought 7 was like trying to be efficient. Like, okay, let's get all these dangerous dudes away from us, kill them, and give Picard some weapons, because she magically teleported them just exactly where Picard and Talon were. And I was like, oh, that's clever. And then they form, you hear that crunching noise, and I'm like, what? Where are the guns? They were holding them in their hands. It's just like they put mannequins in the wall or something, and you're like, where's all the gear?
Well, also, like, 7 at that moment, she's like, holographic Elnor, unlock the ship. And Raffi's like, but if you unlock the ship, you let the Borg Queen take over. And she's like, don't worry, I have a plan.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, when are we going to find out what 7's plan is? Because we never do.
And why not?
If we did, it was the worst plan ever.
Why not relock the ship? Like, you did your plan, or you did your teleport, you're safer now. Elnor, relock the ship. It's like, okay. Like, I don't know, something else. Do anything. Like every time someone points a gun at someone, they either miss or don't fire. And it's been happening so often. I'm like, every time someone has a phaser that looks like a gun, they're not going to fire. 7. I understand.
Well, like I was thinking about that, and so like the weapons that they have are the Confederation weapons, and I don't think they have a stun setting.
Oh yeah.
And so like it's either like you kill someone with that weapon or you don't.
Oh.
And that's one of the reasons why they haven't used them to shoot Girardi, is because like they'd basically like be killing Girardi if they shot her. And it's a small thing that they didn't really make very clear early on, but they should have had like a line of dialogue that, because the weapons that they were using were Confederation weapons, and the Confederation doesn't stun.
Well, compare that to the disruptor, I think, that Rios was using, and this is the dumbest. Like, there's lots of dumb things, but this was like, I got to get back to Picard. He gets the bullet hole fixed up, whatever. He reboots.
Or here's an idea: why not use that knockout gas that you used at the gala?
Yeah.
Just knock out all the mercenaries on the ship.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah. There's so many options. Like, let's do none of them. Nothing useful. Okay. So this gun, which he has already hacked into with his DNA, I don't know how that works, as well as power cycling her transporter device so she can use it. And he transports right in front of Picard when he's about to get shot. There's 2 guys. One of them is like right down the barrel of the gun, the laser pointer directly at his skull. And the other guy just stands there. Obviously, they're Borg, so who knows what they're thinking. And he just incinerates this man. And somehow this key this man is holding falls out of his pocket or something, bounces on the ground. And the other Borg is like, oh, I'm going to fight you now. I'm not going to shoot you. I'm just going to... It's like, why didn't you just blow his head off? He's right there. You're aiming. It's like, no, I'm going to grab him. And then he pulls out a knife. Rios gets the upper hand, takes the knife and cuts him up, while Soong picks up this gun. And it's like, you hear this timing sound going. And for whatever reason, Rios is like, oh yeah, that's a bomb. And you're like, why did you tell him that? What was... Tell your enemy he's about to die. And he's like, oh shit. So he throws the thing like a grenade into the air. Doesn't hurt anyone. Instead of throwing it at Picard, he just throws it in the air. It's a bomb. And he disappears like a magician.
Obviously, like we have one more episode to go, and I don't know what Dr. Soong's role is going to be, but in a typical Star Trek episode, it'd be one of those things where Picard tries to reason with Soong when Soong has like the weapon on him, and Picard knows that the weapon won't fire because it's DNA encoded, but Soong doesn't know that, and so like Picard would try to reason with him, bring him over to his line of thinking,
right?
Be like, hey, there's paths for you where you can have your legacy without being such a monster, and that would be like the typical Star Trek thing to do. And then like if Soong decides to, like, oh, I'm going to be a bad guy anyway, and he tries to fire and the thing doesn't work, and then they're like, it requires like a DNA match in order for it to work, and then Soong like throws it at the card and runs away. Like that would have been a very typical thing to do. And instead, they don't do that because this isn't Star Trek.
Right, and Soong is not the most athletic man, and he just basically turned a corner. It's like, okay, well, you're safe now. Go get him, or go bug 7 to go transport him into the brig or something. It's like you're not going to go. He's right there. He's somewhere within a 100-meter radius. Go scan.
Or somehow the Picard crew rescues Not Soji, brings her to their medical bay and their bio bed, and like tries to fix her. And then when Soong is about to like destroy everything, Not Soji shows up, and she's like, "Dad, no, I know you're better than this. I love you, the power of love." And Soong's like, "You're right, daughter. I was so wrong to look at you as just my work. I'm going to turn a new leaf now." Like there's so many different things that you could have set up.
Oh God,
it's weird.
Yeah, well, we could go. I mean, the whole big thing to me was the argument between the Borg Queen and Girardi. Like that was I had to take a few breaks Because like you're trying to think of, okay, this queen has access to apparently all the other queens in existence, and they always lose. And it's like, wouldn't they have solved that problem a long time ago? Like, maybe we should like try a different tactic. But because Girardi was there, and they're sharing a body or whatever, she argues all these dumb points, which I'm not going to get into because they're too stupid to talk about, that it's good to be nice. And we can accept people
hear me out here. Or the Borg Queen takes the ship, goes 1,000,000 years into the past, and assimilates Earth, and then goes out and starts assimilating the galaxy. And that way there's no one to oppose her.
Yeah, just go back in time as far as you like and just do what you want. Yeah, it was weird. They'll fight stronger, or you could turn them into a drone and you could have them fight as hard as you want them to. Or you could appreciate them. It's like, why can't you appreciate them as they are? You give them back.
Or maybe they could go to the area where all the Borg remnants got ejected into space in season 1 and pick those guys up and be like, hey, welcome aboard. You're part of our collective now.
Yeah. I mean, didn't Picard say that he remembers being in a euphoria when he was Borg and it was so pleasant that you feel really good?
Yeah, well, they said that there was some type of comfort in the collective and being part of like a group where like you're never alone and everyone's working in harmony and all this other stuff. And they said that it's almost like a drug, because like you get addicted to that feeling of inclusiveness and belonging and stuff like that.
But
it was very weird.
But the Borg Queen always feels alone, just like Girardi. And you're like, what? Why?
Not always. Not when she has the collective. It's now that her collective is gone and she's the last one that she feels isolated and alone. And it was because of her melding with Girardi that she has like someone there with her. That's like her only connection. That's why Girardi has so much influence over her.
I wish they made that clear about that, because she has that degree of influence, that there's that pushback, as opposed to no, because we're talking about a galactic level consciousness who's super, like we're talking super intelligence, that if you have a social problem like I'm lonely, that would have been something that a super intelligent being would have solved fairly easily, I would have think. That's something.
Well, I mean, she's trying to solve it, right? Like she was the last of her species. She was about to be executed in the Confederation timeline. She was rescued by Picard and his very band of men and taken back in time. And so, like, she's only been, like, out, like, maybe a week. And, you know, and she's trying to, you know, reform her collective so she can get back to, you know, having all those things going for her. So, I mean, like, I don't see a problem with her motivation. I do see a problem with how she's trying to make it happen. Because, like I said before, like, she had the La Sirena. She didn't need to leave it to go look at the primitive satellites and eat car batteries. Like she could have had the La Sirena replicate car batteries if that's what she needed. You know, I mean, like there's any number of things that she could have done where like she could have just taken off and left Picard and his group stranded.
Yeah.
You know, like there was no, like everything that led up to this episode 9, was so stupid and contrived. And then when we get into the meat of episode 9, it's even more stupid and contrived because all you need is for not Laris to teleport you onto the La Sirena and, you know, teleport all the mercenaries off the La Sirena and then, like, take it up into orbit or something. There's so many problems that just a teleporter would have solved in this episode, and they just don't do it.
Right.
It's weird.
And they did actually bring that up just with her body, as opposed to the other Borg or her making that sort of barrier around the La Sirena or any other.
So you know what a good writer would have done?
Oh, anything would have worked, really.
Well, anything. But so like we had an entire episode where not Laris uses her technology to go into the mind of Picard to save him, right? So you would think, oh, they set this up where not Laris somehow gets her technology onto Borg Roddy, the Girardi Borg Queen, and she goes into the Borg Queen's mind to rescue Girardi so Girardi can take it over. And so, like, there's some semblance of a balance of power there where, okay, maybe Girardi can't get full control of her body, but Laura's helps her get enough control where the Borg Queen isn't, is forced to compromise. Like they spent entire episodes setting up that technology and then like they don't do anything with it. That could have been the solution to the Borg Queen problem right there. But they didn't do it.
I think we can go on for another hour, but I want to take up your time. Do you want to watch the 30-second, was it sneak peek, or do you want to not be spoiled? What do you feel like?
I'm down for it.
All right. Okay, it's on Watch Together, so I just hit play. We both watch at the same time. Here we go.
Do you think we're on the path to the right future?
I'm not certain.
He's going to use the drones to take out the rocket. I can't stop him.
There's been so much loss, so much death.
Other people's lives aren't up.
Close to her target, which is Renee. We saw, for some reason, Soong was holding Renee's face and putting his arm around her. And Q has his one last surprise for Picard. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so like we're all on our Star Trek panel, we're all pretty much convinced that the season is going to end with some type of cliffhanger that leads into season 3. We think we're going to see the next gen cast show up in the final moments of the episode, and that's going to be like some type of cliffhanger leading us into season 3.
Really?
Yeah, but that's our theory. But I really hope that they wrap up the whole time travel storyline in the next episode, because I don't want to come back to this incredibly stupid storyline next season. I'd rather Star Trek get back to being Star Trek as opposed to NCIS Los Angeles with space technology. It's just it's so frustrating.
It's a very hard thing to watch after episode 9. Episode 9 really, like, I'm still trying to like figure out how this came about, because when you think about, this writer, you ask an author, where were you inspired to do this, and they give some weird obscure experience of them like traveling the world. In this, I don't think anyone had any insight into humanity at all, and they were thinking, we can't have not Laris in episode 8, but we can now, so we'll bring her in. But we didn't think about how. Like, she could teleport us here and that, but we didn't think all the way through. Like, even with the dialogue, I don't know if you remember. Well, first it was Seven saying we need traps, whatever we can use, but that goes nowhere. Didn't trigger any memories in Picard at the time to think about the basement they could hide in. And then she says something like, we have to split up. We divide and conquer. We get 2 chances of getting to the base. It's like, divide and conquer who? That's not... Divide and conquer is a strategy of attacking your enemy and dividing them into smaller enemies so you can deal with their numbers more. She literally says dividing your resources and somehow conquering the massive...
We didn't even talk about we call it the bull rush. Girardi and Raffi and Seven, armed with corkscrews and an ice pick, run into a field filled with armed mercenaries with automatic weapons.
That was
somehow take them out and survive and make it 500 yards to the ship.
That was the second biggest problem I had with the episode. That whole... I finally realized, I think this is... I don't know how this is a woke thing. It didn't really clue in on me until episode 9, because it's all about girl power. It's all about all these women are strong. And I saw in episode 8 all those mercenaries, and there were like 2 men, and the rest, I don't know if you saw the silhouettes, they were all women. I'm like, female mercenaries, that's awesome. I like to see what they can do. Episode 9 comes, none. There's no female mercenaries. They're all guys. And it's all women, just dominant, like the Girardi and obviously the Queen, and Seven and Raffi. I guess a little bit of Not Laris. She was just sort of there to give Picard a hug or whatever. But she had this, this automatic energy weapon. She was like spraying. I thought that was kind of funny. But it's all women being strong. No, they barely get hurt except from Seven, who gets hurt by another woman. I was like, this is weird. This is always women being awesome. I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah, and also somehow the Borg Queen's tentacle turns off the Elnor hologram instead of passing right through him.
Magically hitting his arm without looking at it. That was like, okay, we're going the tentacle route. Every time you see that, I made a joke about that on my video, because that's the when people do game design, it's like the last level at the end of a video game is going to be a boss, and he's going to be some tentacle creature that comes out of nowhere, and he can just do all these attacks at you, and you just like, you can't beat him. You have to power up before you get to. So to see this, and we know she could do this from, was it episode 2 or 3? I can't remember. So, but like, why didn't you do that in the first place? Like, why go through all, why did she walk into the room with a pipe or a sword? Like, I couldn't even tell what she was wielding. I thought it was a sword, but it looked like a pipe. It's like, what are you doing? Come with a phaser. Why are you fighting?
It's like they literally go from them Thelma and Louising into the vineyard, and then cut to Elnor on the ship, and then they just like walk in, and Seven's fine, but Raffi's got like some mud on her face or something like that, and it's just like, oh wow, glad we made it.
And you know, the ship is not that big. There's like maybe 5 or 6 rooms, and they're all like, "Where's Elnor?" They're all like hunting around, and they're aiming their guns at the walls. Like, dude, it's a hallway. He's not hiding in the walls. I mean, he could be hiding in the walls. He's a hologram, but they've already gone up and down there's only 2 levels. It's like, what? There's the armory, there's the med bay, there's the bridge, which is just a big open room.
Yeah, there's a lot of contrived action in this, and it's like when the mercenaries are walking down the hallway towards the transporter, and Seven's desperately trying to like transport them off the ship. It's like, where's the Borg Queen during all this? Like, she was like somewhere in like a side room doing something. It wasn't clear. It was just like everything in the show is just so contrived and stupid, and it's plot contrivance after plot contrivance after plot contrivance, and it's maddening to watch. And
the fans of Star Trek are just like I remember I heard Gary 7. I was like, what the hell is Gary 7? I had to actually look that up. There's references that don't mean anything or are not the same. Like, Picard not hallucinated, but he thought of his mom being older and serving him tea and wanting to talk to him. And I'm like, are you kidding? Are you literally referencing like a season 1 episode where that was it the Final Frontier? What the hell is the name of that episode?
The name of the episode, but I do know that in the Next Generation there was like
where he sees a dream of his mom, and and it's like, Mama? And you're like, oh yeah, it's
Mama, yeah.
and apparently that picture, they took that picture and put it into the scrapbook of his, or the photo book of his family, which was in one of the movies. That was either Insurrection.
Well, I was surprised that the 12-year-old Picard had hair.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but like, you think about it, he's just bald his whole life.
Oh, you're kidding? Really?
I'm not kidding. Like, if you remember in Nemesis, he's going through his old photo album, and we see him at the Starfleet Academy completely bald.
Really?
Even though that was not the case.
Yeah, in Tapestry he had hair.
Yeah, but no, like the Tom Hardy version of young Picard was completely bald.
Oh, jeez. Well, hopefully, again, we say this in a funny way, but we hope that it can't get worse than this.
Oh, it can. And it will. I have no faith in the current writers of all Star Trek. I mean, Discovery is a mess. Picard is a mess. I think that Strange New World, hopefully it's good, but I'm not very optimistic about it.
Yeah.
It's like the writers on this show. So, I did a little bit of research, and there are 2 women who are like the primary writers from episode 3 onward. One of them is this woman named Cindy Appel, Appel, and let me see if I can find the name of the other one real quick. But none of these women any actual experience in science fiction. They have no experience with Star Trek. Like, they were writing like romantic comedies or something like that beforehand. This Cindy Appel girl, like, she was a writer on MacGyver. some show called Superior Donuts, Desperate Housewives, Life According to Jim, The King of Queens, basically a bunch of bad TV shows. And she's the one who is in charge of writing a great deal of these Trek Picard episodes. Like she would alternate between one episode and another with this other lady. Let's see if I can find her here.
Okay, well, I've never heard of them, and I think one was it Akiva Goldsman? Did he leave already, or did?
So he was around. He was around for the first couple episodes. Jane Maggs is the second lady, and she is someone who wrote a couple of TV shows. One was called Bellevue, another one was called Little Dog and Mary Kills People, and with an E. Nothing in the science fiction field until she got to Star Trek Picard. So it's this Jane Maggs lady and Cindy Appel who have been writing the episodes from episode 3 onward. And they're pretty much the ones to blame for how badly written the show is. And it's just like, it's very frustrating because Akiva Goldsman, I think, wrote first 2 episodes of the season, or at least he's credited with that. And then these 2 women kind of take over, and they're overseen by a story editor named Matthew Okamura.
Okay.
Who I guess the guy that gives the scripts their final pass or whatever. And he's a guy who, like his background as a writer, he wrote 1 episode of Smallville, and then he did a couple episodes of the reboot of the Leverage series on TNT, and just not a very good track record on him. But he's kind of the guy who oversees the script that Jane Maggs and Cindy Apple have done.
Okay, because
then there are a couple of staff writers, I guess. But
yeah, because
for the most part,
I was excited about Michael Chabon, but he Chat was telling
me
he
was a disaster.
Yeah, he only was there in the first season. Now he's only in the second season as a executive producer. I can't remember what his role is.
Yeah, so because he helped start the series, he basically gets a producer credit, and they created by credit on every episode, even though he has nothing to do with it.
Yeah, that was
Akiva Goldsman kind of started off as the showrunner, and then he handed the baton to another guy who did more of the day-to-day stuff. But it seems like this is mostly Akiva Goldsman's baby, the second season.
Well, I'd like to end it here. I don't want to take up your time, but I equate this to, this is a strange analogy, I equate this to watching The Room. The Room is relatively well produced in terms of production value. Obviously, there are some cheesy things like sets and CGI, but it's so bad, it's funny. With Picard, it's higher production value in most cases, but you see some cracks between the seams there. But it's a thing you love, and you know it should be a different way. And instead of laughing, you're crying because you're like, this is so wrong. And it looks good. It sounds good. It's acted mostly fairly well at times. But
the litmus test here is if you removed the name Star Trek from the show and it was just a generic science fiction show, like, would people be easy on it? Would it be more enjoyable? I think that because it's Star Trek, it gets a little bit too much leeway.
It would be
it also creates way more problems because they're handling the material so poorly.
Yeah, it would. To me, it would be The Room without that thing you love. As soon as you take that away, you're looking at really expensive bad B movie or B miniseries, and like you would laugh at, like, this is so dumb. How is this so contrived that this happened like this? What a coincidence that all these bad writing techniques I started off with is like, this is what, if you would eliminate those, you'd still have a mess. You'd still have this contrivance of events and characters and technology that doesn't make sense. Like you were talking about pacing in, I can't remember what was it, like the third point you made. on your.
So
your
basically, the pacing in this issue, or in this episode,
Yeah.
is basically Picard keeps having flashbacks.
Yeah, like that is
during action scenes.
Yeah, that is something I would consider if everything is understood. Like the scene makes sense, and I'm like, oh, this is too slow, or we're not spending enough time. That would be like after all the basic problems are like not existent. I would even think about, oh, this is going along well. Like, no, this is broken. It is like the car is not even left the station. It's just
So the issue we brought up was that every time he has a flashback to himself as a kid and his mother during these like very tense action scenes, it grinds the episode's forward momentum to a halt, and it creates a pacing issue with the show where like you want to be moving forward with the main story, but you keep getting sidelined with these flashbacks. And the crazy thing is that not 2 episodes before this one, which was the Mind Prison episode. Like, you could have resolved all these flashbacks into that episode and gotten it out of the way so that you could have just focused on the main story in this episode. And they don't do that.
Yeah, this story is basically just a fight to get and protect the flag or take the flag or whatever. It's pretty straightforward, and they got a few twists and turns, but then you get Picard just reminiscing, and it's like
all they needed was for not Laris to just teleport them onto the ship. That was all they needed.
Yeah, I know. But you got to get an elderly man to not get shot or pull out an 80-year-old gun from France that has 7 rounds in it.
Hey, those Lugers, man, those Lugers were made to last.
Wow, there's the one in the chamber, huh? You always have an extra shot. Those Germans.
I just like how there were like a crate of Nazi weapons lying around.
Yeah. I'm fighting the Nazis again. It's like, yes, you are.
Yeah, no one ever went there to the derelict vineyard and looted that place. Nope.
All the 120-year-old bottles of wine. It probably would cost like.
There's like furniture there you can sleep on.
Like tens of thousands of dollars. Like a gun that was fully functioning on the mantelpiece that had ammo.
Happened to be loaded. Yeah.
Amazing stuff, yeah. Oh boy. Anyway, I'll be here. You guys will also be on your podcast next week after episode 10. I'll be struggling, I'm sure, to finish it up on the weekend. So, I always like to make a shout out to Mr. Michael Strathmore. I saw you in the chat as well. Michael, now we talked about Major Grin and the Nitpicking Nerd is the same guy who did a really long analysis of all the details. Michael is like that, only even more nitpicking, even more detailed. And if you look at my videos, Michael has like an 80, 90 point comment thread on some of them. He went into a lot of details. So every time I'm like, I can't take this anymore. What did Michael write? It's like, yeah. Okay, he got like 30 things I missed. So
we would love it if some of your guys would hop on over to our channel, saltynerdvideo.com. Takes you to our YouTube channel, and we do live streams 3 times a week. But Saturday is our Star Trek live stream. I also do a live stream on Thursdays called Bad Writing, and with that one, I try to get experts or like actual writers and storytellers and stuff like that to come on board and discuss like different aspects of bad writing. We've definitely tackled Star Trek Picard in the past and stuff like that. But we'd love it if you guys would come over, subscribe to our channel, and check out our videos. We upload 3 times a week. So we got a pretty regular schedule going on over there.
Awesome. Well, guys, check it out. It's in the description. That's the Salty Nerd Podcast. Thank you so much, Matt, for popping on. I know this was a thing you wanted to talk about some more. I was like, you're fighting with your crew there. You're like, okay.
Dude, I could talk about this stuff for hours. Like the level of stupidity that I could like dive into on this is just like unending, basically.
I know, and I've got it off my chest. I just like to share the pain because, again, this is like one of those moments in your not professional career, but your movie watching, TV watching time where you go, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. Like it's one of those moments.
It's so bad.
Yeah, like episode 8 really was a big thing for me, and then I saw this one. I'm like, oh, this is even worse.
Well, Well, the crazy thing is that this should be the flagship Star Trek series, right? This should be the series that is leading the way for the future of Star Trek. Everyone's signing up for Paramount Plus. Everyone's watching it because it's Picard, because it's the next generation, because it's these characters in this world that we love. And they should be treating it like it's the gold standard. And instead, they got the B team on here basically destroying everyone's favorite captain other than Kirk. And it's painful to watch. It's so painful.
I think Angry Joe said they were using crayons in the writing room. Like, this is how. Like it is. I said it a joke.
That got his first 0 out of 10.
That was his first. Yeah, he was debating it because he said I only give a 0 if like Paramount Plus like couldn't run the file. You know?
Yeah.
But it stuttered a bit. But he eventually, after he was going through, no, it's absolute garbage. Like, he was even arguing the message of the story, which he agreed with, was handled poorly. I'm like, what was the message of the story? What was the theme? I have no idea.
Well, he was talking about, so early on in the season, there are all these like anti-immigration messages.
Oh, yeah, but
basically leftist policy propaganda, and Angry Joe, like, he's like, you know what, I'm a progressive, I agree with all these things, but they're distracting from the story I want to hear, and they're ruining my entertainment, and they shouldn't be in here.
Yeah, but but episode 9, like episode 8, I got the theme, as dumb as it was, because it didn't make sense at the end. With 9, it was, I don't know, like, I don't know what the message was. It was a bunch of, it was an action plot, so I don't know. Like, Picard is. No, there is no theme I could think of that would match up with like a moral or a lesson.
Well, other than like you can still have childhood trauma when you're 90.
When you're a 90-year-old immortal robot, yeah. Time traveler. Anyway, thank you guys so much. Please check out the Salty Nerd podcast. Thank you, Matt.